Good evening, and welcome to another edition of NCNW's Women's Empowerment Webinars. We're so delighted you could join us this evening. Hope you've had a good day. The background is a spare room in my home. We haven't been in the office now for about a year, and I'm beginning to miss it. So maybe next month this time we'll be broadcasting again from 633 Pennsylvania Avenue. Tonight we have a wonderful speaker. She's familiar to you if you've been to any of our webinars in the past. She's Vanessa Foster Cooksey. She is an extraordinary presenter, has a lot of information to share. She's one of my, I guess I shouldn't say it, but she is one of my favorite presenters. And we're glad to welcome her back. I don't know if this is her maybe third time with us tonight. And so we're delighted to have her. Let me just tell you a little bit about Ms. Cooksey. In November of last year, she became the CEO and president of the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. That is the largest public funder of the arts in that region. She brings to the Regional Arts Commission more than 25 years of business and civic experience. Don't let her youthful looks persuade you that she is not experienced, because she certainly is. In marketing, in communications, in philanthropy leadership, she's held positions across a variety of government, nonprofit, and for-profit organizations. And what impresses me about Ms. Foster Cooksey is that she knows how to convey all of that experience in ways that all of us can understand. Her previous experience includes roles with Wells Fargo, Anheuser-Busch, the City of Atlanta Mayor's Office, and the Cartoon Network. She's also worked at Washington University, where she was responsible for developing professional and continuing education outreach programs for University College, which explains why she's such an able and illuminating presenter. Just after we have a few minutes of introductory comments from Mr. Kevin Johannes, who is our Director of Communications, you will hear from Ms. Vanessa Foster Cooksey. Thank you again, and welcome to NCNW.
Good evening. I'd like to point your attention to a couple things this evening. First of all, there is a section with handouts where you have handout information from GoToWebinar, information on how to use this with the NCNW webinars, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint for this evening, so you don't have to take as many notes. Also, I'd like to put your attention to the polls, because there will be some poll questions during tonight's interaction. And if you have a question, there's a question section that you can type in, and a chat section if you want to leave a note. Please understand there's a difference between a chat and a question. Questions are succinct. If you need to raise your hand, we will be monitoring, and we will try to get to your question as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Johannes. And now again, here's Ms. Vanessa Foster Cooksey, and she's going to talk to us about one of our favorite subjects, and that is leadership, discovering the leader in you. Ms. Foster Cooksey, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mathis. I am honored to be with you today and to share the power of 3 leadership. Thank you as well, Mr. Johannes, for inviting me to participate. We will start our presentation. The power of 3 leadership is a threefold approach to achieving your personal and professional goals. Leadership today requires more energy and effort than ever. There's so much going on in our country, in our world, from resource constraints to training the next gen workforce. Balancing personal and professional demands often leaves Black women stretched and at times near burnout. I know I found myself in that place more times than I'd like to admit. Through today's interactive conversation, we are going to explore some of my favorite frameworks and tools that I hope will empower your quest to be a transformational leader. Now, a little bit of housekeeping for our experience together today over the next hour or so. This webinar is designed for audience participation. We will have polls, opportunities to share in the chat. I'll have plenty of time for your questions and really want to engage with you in this conversation. This webinar is also designed for honesty. This is a safe space to reflect, to think about where you are. I'll be sharing a lot of my personal story and what I've learned, both in the workplace and at home. And my hope is that through sharing these frameworks, a lot of this we already know, and sometimes it's just good to have affirmation or confirmation that you're on the right track, or, I hadn't thought about it like this, or this is a new tool that I can use in my toolbox. So this webinar is designed for thought partnership. So what is the power of 3 leadership? I like to call it me, we, and us. And I'll talk about each one specifically and some of the frameworks and tools that align with leadership from a me, we, and us perspective. When we talk about me, success in our society comes to those who know themselves. You all have heard the African proverb and the importance of know thyself. Well, knowing our strengths, weaknesses, and values and how we best perform is really important. Now, we all know that life is a contact sport. So it's not just me, it's about we. And in this part of the presentation, we'll talk about how we interact with others, and particularly for those of us that manage other people or are leaders of people, the importance of teamwork. And then the us. Leaders must stay on top of current trends that are impacting their companies, their industry, and employees. So this is more of the big picture, organization and systems level thinking. So we've got our first poll. I want to know who's in the room. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you work for a company, if you do both, you work full time, you got your side hustle, or if you're a student, or if there's something that you would classify as how you work, please pick that as well. So the poll is in progress. This also helps me to tailor my stories and comments and feedback. Just a little bit more time. Make sure everyone has an opportunity to share. All right, we have a great mix of women and maybe even some guys on the call, but we have full-time entrepreneurs. 44% of us work full-time for a company. Many of us have both the full-time and run our own businesses, and we've got a few students with us today. So super excited to learn that about our team. All right, to kick off the me discussion, I wanted to share one of my favorite quotes by Nelson Mandela. It says, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And this is so important because life is practice. We are each unique and different, and we're going this way one time, and it's our opportunity to grow. And looking at our experiences, either when things work out for us as a win, and when they don't work out for us, not necessarily as a loss, but a learning opportunity, is really what leadership is all about. And so leading yourself is just as important as leading others. So 2 frameworks and tools are 2 important components of the me in the power of 3 leadership and leading yourself is to prioritize self-care and gaining experience in all 3 sectors. And so if you'll remember on the first opening slide, there were several light bulbs, but only one was turned on. And so as I share these different frameworks and tools, the hope is that they will provide extra resource for you to take your leadership to the next level. So let's talk a little bit about prioritizing self-care. Speaking specifically to Black women, are we losing the battle and the war? Sometimes over the course of our life, we can think of experiences that didn't go well, our setbacks, and think, okay, this is one specific occurrence, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm still on track. But when I look at the status of Black women's health and how we are struggling with chronic disease, issues with maternal health and mental health, I'm beginning to wonder, are we not just losing the battle, are we losing the war? And not being able to prioritize self-care has a lot to do with many of the health issues that we are experiencing. So what does that mean in real terms? It's time out for Superwoman. We oftentimes have a lot of responsibility, either by choice or by circumstance, and put ourselves last, caring for others, caring for our children. We have 5 boys in our family, ranging from 26 to almost 10. Husbands, parents, where many of us are in the middle. So we're taking care of parents, we're taking care of our families, we have stress on our jobs, we're leaders, we're running our companies, but we oftentimes sacrifice our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being out of being in service to others. And some of this is just part of our culture and wanting to be of service. And I am not saying any of that is bad. What I am saying is we have got to be intentional about taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. You've often heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And so understanding our personal values that drive our behaviors and actions, and being able to say to our loved ones, to our colleagues, to our coworkers, this is what I need. And having them respond favorably to that is so important. Another thing in taking off our capes is shifting from being wholly responsible for everything to responding adequately to circumstances. Sometimes people just need to work it out on their own. You know, there's a saying that I have when I don't want to engage in a particular thing. Not my circus, not my monkeys. And my mom added, not my farm, not my donkeys. So whatever anecdotes, sayings, anything that you need to help you to step back and say, is this really my work to do? Or how can I empower others to do their part, to carry their weight so that I'm not over functioning is so important. And using your personal truth, integrity, authenticity, and holding others accountable as the new measures of success. So when we talk about gaining, and this is another tool or thing for you to consider in your power of 3 leadership, having tri-sector experience. Tri-sector leaders can work, engage, and collaborate across public, private, and social and nonprofit sectors. Our world is complex, it is global, and it really does require all 3 sectors to work together for us to make progress and advance not just our economy, but our democracy and our humanity. Tri-sector leaders often find ways to integrate personal and professional goals that include wealth creation. There is nothing wrong with wanting to build wealth for yourself and your family. Having influence and impact at a large scale or systems level is often found in opportunities in our government sector. Living out a strong sense of mission is often found in opportunities in serving and working in our nonprofit sector. And now more than ever, we need leaders, particularly Black women, who have experience in all 3 sectors to lead the way. This helps us to not only bring more people along, but identify solutions to larger societal problems that are sustainable. And I'll talk a little bit about my personal journey and how I've garnered experiences in all three sectors. What are ways that we can do this? Nonprofit board service. I am a big believer. I've served over 30 years on nonprofit boards and volunteered for nonprofits. And when I look over the course of my career, I can point to my successes, my greatest areas for growth, and some of my best relationships have come from meeting people who I've served with in nonprofits. Board service in particular is a great way to learn new skills. If in your day job or in your company, you're focused on one particular skill, you can use opportunities in board service to learn another. My background is in marketing. I, when serving on boards for several years, volunteered to serve on the finance committee because that gave me an opportunity to learn that function, to learn those skills, to learn that language. So I am a big believer in serving on nonprofit boards in your local community as a way to gain experience in the nonprofit sector if you're currently working in government and or corporate. Another way to gain experience in all three sectors is through continuing education opportunities, whether that's certifications, taking classes for fun, non-credit bearing classes, and or pursuing additional degrees. These are ways to learn about other industries, other sectors, with others who also want to learn. And then a third recommendation for gaining experience in all three sectors is what I call SME, consulting gigs, subject matter expertise. All of us are good at something. And that thing that we're good at, somebody else needs. And so, again, my experience is in marketing. And so I have taken on consulting opportunities and or side hustles to help other individuals and companies who could benefit from my expertise. This gives you an opportunity to learn and build and expand your network in different sectors as well. So I want to share a little bit of my threefold approach to working in all three sectors, and also my threefold approach to self-care. So a little bit about my background. I graduated from the University of Texas in Austin. Went to the University of Texas to earn a degree in radio, television, film, because my sophomore year in high school, I saw the movie Malcolm X and I was so inspired. I actually came home and I told my parents, me and Spike Lee are gonna make movies and change the world. Well, didn't quite do that because I didn't want to live in New York. So the next best thing was to move to Atlanta for an opportunity to work for the Cartoon Network. And I had had a lot of experience through high school and college working in video production. So I chose to work in marketing for CartoonNetwork.com. And I was fortunate because I got to learn how to code in HTML. And that was a skill that helped me to leverage opportunities to move into different sectors. And so when I worked at Cartoon Network, I left there and went for an opportunity at the mayor's office for the city of Atlanta under the Shirley Franklin administration, where I served as the e-communications manager and helped to launch AtlantaGA.gov. So moved from the corporate sector into the public sector because of my skill set in communications and in digital marketing. Spent some time in the mayor's office, ended up going back to Cartoon Network in the marketing space. So back to a corporate environment. And that led me into working on corporate philanthropy. We were dealing with issues of childhood obesity. And throughout my career, I've always served in nonprofit boards. And so one of the things that I'm passionate about is health and wellness. And so being able to take that experience on the nonprofit side and mix it with corporate gave me the entree into corporate philanthropy and community relations. So long story short, I left Atlanta in 2008, moved to St. Louis, continuing in corporate philanthropy, and most recently was appointed by the commission, the Regional Arts Commission in St. Louis, as their first president and CEO. And part of what they acknowledged was unique about my experience is that I had a consistent expertise in communications and marketing, but I had been able to do that work in all three sectors: in government with the City of Atlanta, in corporate with organizations like Cartoon Network and Wells Fargo, and now in leading a nonprofit. It's really a coming together of all of the things that I love: arts and culture, strong governance, and making a little money, which never hurts. So just an example of when you leverage your skill or your subject matter expertise and are open to new opportunities in different places, how that can help you expand your experience and gain experience in all three sectors. So now let's talk a little bit about self-care. I have been on a healthy lifestyles journey for more than 20 years. My father passed from pancreatic cancer in January of 1997, and I was devastated by the loss and committed to trying to live a healthy lifestyle to be of service not only to my community, to reflect the pride and how I wanted to make my dad proud, but also to be of service in my family, wanting to be healthy. And so I've tried a variety of healthy lifestyles program and had to just simplify it down to the one that I could stick with. And that really is walk, water, rest. I try to make sure I move my body 30 minutes a day. I try to make sure I drink at least 8 glasses of water every day. And I try to make sure I get 8 hours of sleep. Whatever you choose and however you choose to take care of yourself and prioritize self-care, make sure that it's something that works for you. The beauty of the life we live today and the resources that we have access to, that there's so many frameworks and models, but at the end of the day, whatever works for you and that you can commit to so that you feel your best, that's what's most important. All right, here is an opportunity for interaction. I hope that you have a pen and paper or your laptop open to the notes section as we get ready to move into the we and the us portion of the presentation. I want to take the opportunity to just reflect and answer these 2 questions for yourself. What can I do tomorrow, in the next 6 months, and in the next 12 months to prioritize self-care? Then the second prompt is, what can I do tomorrow, in the next 6 months, and in the next 12 months to gain experience in a different sector? So think about where you are, what your goals are, and jot down a few notes in answer to those 2 prompts. All right. Next, in the chat feature, if you are open to it, I'd be interested to know if anyone would be interested in sharing what you wrote down as a self-care commitment, something that you would plan to do tomorrow, in the next 6 months, or in the next 12 months. So feel free to put your answer in the chat so we can share with others. Something as simple as getting a massage, committing to walking 3 times a week. Read more, love it. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. At the end of the presentation, I have a list of references, a list of books that have been very helpful to me in my career. And so I'll be sure to share those. Going walking tomorrow, absolutely. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, anything. That's something that I've been very intentional about since we've been in this pandemic at home on Zoom meetings. Depending on the Zoom meeting, don't tell anybody. I will put myself on mute, turn my video off, and walk the neighborhood. because sitting at a desk in front of a screen all day takes its toll. All right, write more. Carry weights while you're walking with the dog. Thank you, Madam Mathis. Restore relationship with family members. Absolutely. That totally matters. If nothing we've learned from our experiences with COVID-19 and this pandemic is the value of family and how fragile our relationships are. Fasting 1 day a week, excellent. Drinking more water, right on. So I'm hoping that you all are getting inspired by or thinking, oh yeah, I should be doing that. I'll give it one more minute and then we'll go to our poll. All right. Now, Mr. Johannes, we have a poll. Want to know what your thoughts are. If you currently work in the government sector and want to explore nonprofit opportunities, or if you are currently in the corporate or private industry and want to explore government opportunities, just curious, based on what I've shared and why we need leaders, particularly Black women, who can bring tri-sector experience to leadership. Which one most interests you as a sector you'd like to explore? Nonprofit. Love it. Love it. Yeah, lots of opportunity. The needs are great in the community. And whether you want to pivot into a new career in nonprofit or just identify ways to explore and volunteer in your local community, there is no shortage of work to do. So I encourage you to make your notes and get busy. All right, up next, we're going to move into our next approach for our threefold leadership and talk a little bit about we and us. But first, we have a video.
If I think of my life as a class and what I've really learned, I've learned a few things. First, I'm aware that I'm a child of God. It's such an amazing understanding to think that the it, which made fleas and mountains and rivers and stars, made me. What I pray for is humility, to know that there's something greater than I. And I have to know that the brute, the bigot, and the batterer are all children of God, whether they know it or not. And I'm supposed to treat them accordingly. And it's hard, and I blow it all the time. I'd like everybody to think of a statement by Terence. The statement is, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. If you can internalize the least portion of that, you will never be able to say of an act, a criminal act, well, I couldn't do that. No matter how heinous the crime, if a human being did it, you have to say, I have in me all the components that are in her or in him. I intend to use my energies constructively as opposed to destructively. If you can do that about the negative, just think what you can do about the positive. If a human being dreams a great dream, dares to love somebody, if a human being dares to be Martin King or Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or Malcolm X, if a human being dares to be bigger than the condition into which she or he was born, it means so can you. And so you can try to stretch yourself. So you can internalize, "Ah, homo sum, humani nihila mea alienum puto." I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. That's one thing I'm learning.
That video, when I first saw it, when it aired originally, changed everything for me in terms of my leadership and taking a human approach to leading people, leading teams, leading myself, leading in organizations. And there were times when I went to grad school and got my master's degree while I worked at Wells Fargo, and where I would watch that video every day to remind myself and encourage myself around the importance of leadership and leading from we and leading from that human place. And the two tools and frameworks that I believe very deeply in when it comes to managing and leading others is to champion conflict resolution and commit to learning agility. One of the frameworks that I really like is The Ideal Team Player. It's a book called by Patrick Lencioni, and he outlines 3 characteristics of the ideal team player. And it's humble, hungry, and smart. And what he talks about is that oftentimes when teams struggle, it's not because they lack the knowledge or the skill to get the job done. It's often the culture and a battle of values that creates this dysfunctional behaviors and toxic work environment where things really are hard to get done, hard to measure, and just makes work a chore. And so whether you're an entrepreneur running your own business or you work for a corporation or an organization, it's often how we treat each other that impact the work. And so when we talk about the importance of being humble, hungry, and smart as a leader of people, that's how we can show up to get the best from our teams. And that's something that we can encourage and develop in our team members so that we can work together. Humility, sharing the credit, defining success collectively rather than individually. I believe basketball teams do a really great job of defining success collectively. Hungry, what does it mean to be hungry? Nope, not about food, but about being proactive, being diligent. How many of us have worked with someone where we've had to beg them just to do their jobs, but how refreshed we are when we get to work with team members who are proactive and committed to lifelong learning, know how to willing to learn something new, try things in different ways. So that's what we mean by being hungry. And then smart isn't just about knowledge and or skill, but about being people smart, being self-aware, like Maya talked about at the beginning of the video. She talked about her own self-awareness, and there is very few things that are better than working with someone who is self-aware. We don't ask for perfection, and we certainly as leaders shouldn't ask for our team members to be mini me's, but what we want is for folks to be self-aware and have a clear understanding that their words and their actions have an impact on others, both individually and as a group. So I highly recommend to use this framework, humble, hungry, and smart, as you're developing your team members, as you are leading in organizations, hiring, managing performance. These characteristics really do transcend the what we do and speak to the how we do it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the us in the power of 3 leadership, this threefold approach. The bigger picture. The first component is what I call keeping the main thing the main thing. And the second is finding your sweet spot, the intersection of competence, passion, and organizational needs. Organizations' purpose are to meet a need in society for a community and or for individuals. This is a definition by Peter Drucker. And we have goods and services that we exchange. Organizations have expenditures. Organizations generate income. And organizations also have staff and labor. These are the things that make up our organization. And oftentimes, when I am coaching younger team members or men and women who are just starting out in their career, I often tell them, please don't ask elephants to fly. They weren't designed to do that. If they were, they'd have wings, they'd be smaller, whatever it would take for an elephant to fly, they would have that if that's what they're supposed to do. And what I mean by that is oftentimes as leaders and as individual contributors, we have expectations of our bosses and our organizations that don't really fit into the organization's purpose. And that's where conflict comes, disappointment, unmet expectations. And so being clear, not only in what your organization's purpose is, but how it generates revenue, how it serves customers is so important. And that's the thing that we should be thinking about when we're aligning with organizations, either as an employee and or starting businesses, to make sure that we're in environments that allow us to bring our full skill, passion, and competence to the work. And I'll talk about that next. Another recommendation or tool for your toolbox is creating personal development plans. And the threefold approach that I like to apply in my organization and with my team members is one that looks at competence, the ability to do something successfully or efficiently; passion, a strong liking or desire, devotion to an activity, object, or concept. So people who are passionate about their work often show up differently; and organizational need. So if you work for a bank, like I have once worked for a bank, asking them to do things that are reflective of what a gas company does isn't a good fit. So being clear in what is the operating environment, the needs and the mission, and how that organization generates profit is really important. And finding the sweet spot in your work where you're good at it, you're passionate about it, and it's something that the organization needs, that's when you're in an environment where it really doesn't feel like work, where you're succeeding, you're getting the job done, and you're enjoying it. You're enjoying your coworkers, you're enjoying your environment. That, of course, assumes that you're in an environment where your values are aligned. But again, looking for the sweet spot. So as you go back to work tomorrow, be thinking about, do you have a development plan? If not, it is fine to ask for one. It is fine to come to develop your own development plan, present that to your manager and say, this is how you want to grow. And these are the three pillars of finding your best work. So what happens if one of these is missing? Well, if you have competence and passion, but there's not the organizational need, it's not aligned with the broader vision and work of the company, that is a hobby. It's not as useful as when the organization needs are being met. If you're in a situation where you're really good at what you do, you're successful, you're efficient, you're aligned with the organizational need, but you really don't have a lot of passion for what you're doing, that's when work feels like a chore. So what is things that you can do to either through volunteer service, for those that work in corporate environments, aligning with your employee resource group, finding ways to connect in the community through your community relations organization. You know, a lot of this is different. I know we're all working from home, but ideally soon we'll get back to working in person. And there's still needs that we can manage virtually, but finding ways to have the passion side of your work met will make work feel like less of a chore. And then last but not least, if you're passionate and you're meeting the organizational need, but you're not necessarily competent at it, meaning you're not efficient and it's not successful, that makes work feel like growth. So it's stretching, it's learning, and it's growing. None of these are bad, but in order to find that sweet spot, we want to make sure that all three are present. All right, so now I want to share my threefold approach to leading the we and the us, whether it's in my current job at the Regional Arts Commission and or Anheuser-Busch or other companies that I've worked for. Whenever I have to make a decision, develop a strategy or a plan, I use what is called the inverted pyramid and think about the decision's impact first on the organization. What's best for the organization? I understand the business model. I understand what the organizational needs were. So is this decision that I'm making going to serve the highest and best use for the organization? And then from there, I decide and I evaluate the decision. What's best for the team that's most impacted, that's actually doing the work? Sometimes leaders will not consider team members that are doing the work when they're making their decisions, and that creates conflict and disappointment. So I think about the people doing the work. How will this decision or this direction influence them? And then last and certainly not least, I think about the individual. How many of us have worked for organizations where jobs or departments were created based on an individual? Not saying that that's a bad thing, but when that person leaves or changes their mind, the impact to the team and the organization can be significant. So I have found that the inverted pyramid helps me to initiate projects and or key strategies that are sustainable, because we've looked at organizational needs, we've looked at team needs, and we've looked at individual needs. And when you can devise a solution that is a win-win-win in all three, that's really a good thing. All right, now let's take a minute for some reflection and planning. So get your notes out, pen and paper, and answer these following prompts. What can I do tomorrow, in the next 6 months, or in the next 12 months to champion conflict resolution? Early in the chat, we saw building and repairing relationships with family members. That's important in the workplace as well. What are things that you can do tomorrow, in 6 months or 12 months, to commit to learning agility? Is there a new skill that you want to learn? When you look at the competency model, something that you can do to add passion. Next, what can I do tomorrow, in the next 6 months or the next 12 months to better understand my company's business and revenue model? Is it attending or learning through the learning management system? LinkedIn Learning, lots of opportunities to learn about your business and your industry. And then last but not least, what's something that I can do tomorrow, in 6 months, or in the next 12 months to find my sweet spot at work? So I'll give you a couple minutes to think, take some notes, and then we'll have a poll. All right, I want to hear from you based on what I have just shared. When you think about your current work, like to know, where are you? Are you in your sweet spot? Are you in a growing place? You've got the competence, or you've got the passion and there's a need, but still working on the competence? Does it feel like a hobby? Competence, passion, no real organizational need? Or does your current work feel like a chore? You're good at it, the organization needs it, but no real passion. And if the concept, you're still thinking it through and not real sure, that's okay too. So give it a couple minutes to answer the poll and see where we are. All right, growth sweet spot. That's excellent. Congratulations. Many of us are benefiting from being good at what we do, enjoying what we do, and finding value, adding value in our organizations. Some of us have some chores, a couple of us not sure, and in the hobby space. But the good news is all of this is malleable, and we have the tools, the networks, and the resources to move into our sweet spot. All right. So as I close my presentation and open it up for questions and answer from you, I wanted to share a few resources for those of you that put read more as one of the things that you'll do for self-care, and certainly as opportunities for us to learn. I highly recommend these resources. The Black Women's Health Imperative, bwhi.org, has a ton of great information about resources to help Black women improve Black women's health, not only for us as individuals, but ways for us to engage our community. So I recommend visiting that website. The next several bullets are books that I've read over the course of my career at varying companies that have been really helpful to me as I've worked on my personal development plan. And that includes How Not to Die by Michael Greger, great nutrition information. I had to do a lot of unlearning and relearning in my personal health journey. Things that I thought were good for me really weren't. Finding tools and ways to make it easy to eat healthy, particularly when I'm busy. Really great resource there. Michael Greger also has a website called nutritionfacts.org. So for those like myself who do better learning audibly versus by reading, he's got some great videos, lots of content from his book. He's turned into videos, so you can watch anywhere from 1 to 3 minute videos about different nutrition science and information. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker will really support you as you're working on the me side of the Power of Three. Triple Strength Leadership actually inspired the title of this workshop, but talks specifically about and gives examples of leaders who have worked across all three sectors and the impacts that they've had, and how if you would like to have a development plan to work in all three sectors, it talks about career paths for that, which is really great. And then the last two books are by an author, Patrick Lencioni, The Ideal Team Player and The Motive. He leads an organization called the Table Group and has some really good works. I enjoy his books also because they often start with a fable. So there's a story that really shares the principles and the tools and frameworks for his book, starting with a story and then digging into the learning. So hopefully you'll check out some of these books either at your local bookstore, online, Audible, Amazon. Really great resources to help you with your leadership development. All right, with that, I am open to questions, comments, feedback. We're doing good on time. I think Mr. Johannes will help me out with the Q&A portion.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, if you'd like to ask a question, please type it in the questions box and we will get it read to Ms. Foster Cooksey. I'm also looking to see if there are any hands raised. I see none at the time.
No, there's a question in the chat from Ms. Mathis. Thank you. What advice would you give someone who is working a job and growing a business at the same time? Oh, that is an excellent question. My advice to that person is don't go it alone. I have had experiences where I've worked full time as well as starting a consulting business, and it's a lot. And being very clear in what your business is and how you offer that service is really important. Also, having clarity around the timeline for your business. Is this something that you're growing quickly? Is it something that you're growing over time? having a plan, a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, because oftentimes, particularly for our peer group, I'm Generation X, we like to do a lot because we can, and then we get overwhelmed, and then we don't do the main thing, keeping the main thing the main thing. So get help, make sure you're clear on your time frames, and it's okay if it doesn't work. Learning, failing forward, failing fast, pivoting, changing. If COVID hadn't taught us anything, that I think is something that I hope we take forward as a learning, that if something doesn't work, you don't have to do it. So the key thing is, whether it's job, career, keeping self-care as a priority should be number one.
Okay, first question we have here is, can you talk a little bit about networking and how to be an effective networker?
Absolutely. I do believe in networking. I believe in relationships, and identifying what your goal is in networking is really important. So I am a natural extrovert, and so I need people, and I like to be around people, and I don't always have to have something that I need from a person. I just like the interaction. For introverts that don't need that, networking can take on a different experience, and that's fine. What I have found in my career, and particularly when I am working with people who are newer in their career or just not as experienced in networking, is being open to different kinds of relationships. Often people will approach me and say, will you be my mentor? You might not need a mentor. You might need an advisor or someone who you can just talk to bounce ideas off of. In the corporate space, we often talk about sponsorship and having a sponsor, someone who will represent you when you're not in the room. So understanding the different kinds of relationships that you can have with people, and again, coming back to time, the time investment in our relationships really matter, because sometimes we'll meet people and it's transactional. They have something you need, you get it, vice versa. And sometimes those relationships are sustained over time. They grow into friendships, deeper relationships. So taking a big picture or broader approach to networking and understanding, what do I need, what do I have to give, and making those connections and relationships based on resources and time has tended to work as a good strategy for me for networking.
Okay, the next question is, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur trying to work with the government sector?
Got it. I learn as much as you can about what that particular agency, government agency, needs and how they procure it. One thing I love about working in the public sector is that it really is public. And oftentimes, when individuals or organizations want to engage, there's infrastructure there, there's people and resources whose job it is to help you to connect. And so, starting with the website to understand what the supplier diversity or the procurement processes are is really important. There's often requirements, particularly if you're a female, minority, women-owned business, some requirements around that. But starting with asking, how can my product be of service to your organization? And identifying the person that can ask that question, and then having the right follow-up questions. Once you make contact with the first person, let them know what your goals are and ask them, are you the right person to help me achieve this goal, or is there someone else that I can talk to? I have noticed that working and engaging with the public sector oftentimes takes a little longer. So sometimes it's just a matter of persistence and patience when you want to, be a supplier to a public agency or a public organization.
Okay. When you're a leader Sometimes you need encouraging. What can I do for encouragement?
Oh my gosh, when you're a leader, you need encouragement every day. I took I participated in a leadership development class when I worked at Cartoon Network, and this was, gosh, when I first started. So I was very early in my career, and I didn't understand it until years later. And the professor said, leadership is painful, and if you want to be a good leader, and particularly leading at a systems or a large scale, you have to be able to manage pain. And I thought, good grief, why would you want to be a leader? But people are hard. They say the work is easy, it's the people that are hard. And being able to, and this is where self-care comes in, encourage yourself. I tend to encourage myself through gospel music. That's what speaks to my heart and helps me get myself together. Also being encouraged by your family, friends, best friends, partners, brothers, sister, having someone who knows you, who will tell you the truth, who will be there for you when times are tough is really important. And I think it's a balance, encouraging yourself through music, song, meditation, prayer, finding the thing that works for you and exploring different things. And what I've noticed over time, there are things that consistently help me stay encouraged. Gospel music has been that for me from the time, from even high school days, and it is still that for me. Prayer, meditation, yoga are tools that I have in my toolbox that have met me where I was when I was a specific age. So having a broad portfolio, just like with your finances, a broad portfolio of things that encourage you and holding yourself accountable to using those tools so that you don't reach burnout, so you don't end up in the hospital and sick is really important. And then adding to that, your other personal and human resources, your friends, your family, but being intentional about keeping that first. Again, it all goes back to self-care.
All right. How do you recommend managing now in these racially charged virus impact environment?
Oh gosh. Still learning. I tend to start with what Maya Angelou talked about. I'm a human being. And one of the things that made a difference for me in what she said was, nothing human can be alien to me. And what I have found in our broader national narrative is a lot of judgment, a lot of othering. And the more that I can stay connected to my colleagues, to my family, just at the human level, what I tend to say to myself now in this COVID time is grace and space. We need to extend a little extra grace and a little space. We're still in the pandemic. Things are changing, things are getting better, things can get worse. And so starting from a place of, I'm going to extend grace, I'm going to give some space, is where I start first, but also holding people accountable. We're still having some of the same conversations that we had last summer and saying, this is not okay. And this is what I expect in terms of seeing real change, and staying after it is really important, particularly as we start to move into a new administration and what I hope will be a different culture for how we engage with each other.
Okay, this is a question along similar lines. How does one maintain or regain the passion as they continue in their sweet spot? Oftentimes, stress-related factors in leadership and its demands become complex.
I hate to harp on it, but for me, that is a sign of not enough self-care and really, taking time to stop. Because even when you love what you're doing from a work perspective, and for those of us who have people who live in our same house or take care of family members, there's no question about whether you love the people and the work, but sometimes are you taking care of you enough, and you need a break. So I would ask, when's the last time you took time off? When's the last time you tried something completely different and maybe use a tool that I use is what I call a tithe of my time. So for those of us who understand tithing, it's 10%. It's part of our spiritual development. But I also have a tithe of my time. So 10% of my day is 2.4 hours or 2 hours and 25 minutes. No, sorry, 2 hours and 35 minutes. So in a day, am I tithing back a portion of my time to take care of myself, to explore new things, to just take a break and do nothing? Like sometimes doing nothing is the thing. And so when you find yourself, you're in your sweet spot, but it's kind of feeling like drudgery, or it's not giving you what you need, taking the time to step back. And that's something else that the Power of Three formula of me, we, and us can help you to get unstuck in your personal and professional life. Taking some time to say, okay, is it me? Are my organs working? Am I healthy? Is it we? Is it the people in my environment? Let me ask some questions. Let me reflect and think. Or is it us? Is it a broader systemic environmental issue that needs to be addressed? So taking time to reflect, identifying the we, the me, we, and us to help get yourself unstuck.
Can you speak a little bit about transitioning from the professional corporate sector into the nonprofit sector?
Yes, I am going through that right now, and it is hard. Who starts a new job in the midst of a global pandemic? I do. So there are just natural differences in the corporate space, whether it's resource differences, and I come from large global multinational corporations that are what I deem to be well resourced, to now a very local nonprofit organization. And for the Regional Arts Commission, we're funded primarily from hotel motel sales tax. So not sure about you, but the last time I stayed in a hotel was more than a year ago. And so our revenue has been significantly impacted. And so in addition to a resource difference in making the adjustments, there's also significant cultural differences. And one of the things I love about being at RAC and in this nonprofit space is it's teaching me how to slow down and to be even more human. Oftentimes when I was in a corporate environment, it was go, 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 do, do, do. And now I have to be more mindful of the human impacts and how I show up. The biggest difference, I would say, for me, and where my learning curve is getting used to the difference in leadership. So in a corporate space, at best, I had two bosses, my direct boss and a dotted line boss, but oftentimes I just had one boss. Leading a nonprofit organization, I now have 15 bosses. I report to a board of commissioners. So managing the personalities, the needs, and layer on top of that, my bosses are volunteers. So this is not their highest priority. It is mine because this is how I earn my living. But there is a distinct difference in having, in both culturally and strategically, being in the nonprofit space and being in the corporate space. But what makes it worth it, and this is something I encourage as you are looking to explore other sectors, is the why. And for me, being able to make a difference in the St. Louis region is why I am at RAC, and having to learn how to be in this environment is just part of the responsibility that I have in this leadership role.
A question along those same lines, this is asked, I'm currently in the corporate sector and looking to be a tri-sector leader. How can someone get on a nonprofit board? What advice can you provide?
Oh, if your company has, and I refer to this because was my practice in corporate philanthropy. If your company has a community relations person, team, or department, reach out to them and express your interest. because that's the team that's responsible for filling, well, back in the day, but at some point, filling tables, finding board seats, knows the pulse of what's going on in the local community, and often may have worked in the nonprofit sector. And at least by reaching out to that person or persons, they can give you insight into where the needs are and where to start to make that transition. And then also being a member of NCNW, nonprofit, national, reaching out to your local leaders and making connections, expressing an interest in volunteering. All you have to do is raise your hand and connect with someone, and it goes, from that space. One other thing that is very important as you are considering tri-sector leadership, which goes back to self-care, that's personal finances. Making sure that your personal finances can support the vast difference in compensation across the three sectors is really important. Saving and investing and preparing yourself. Oftentimes I have found that when I mean Black women and my friends and in my village, aren't able to take advantage of different opportunities because financially it just doesn't work. And so being able to take calculated risk, try new things, comes back to the self-care piece, and in this component, financial.
I'm going to combine two questions here, and because you're on the same line, how do you gain buy-in from employees that are reluctant to change, and how do you deal with microaggressions?
Oh gosh. I'll start with the reluctant to change, and then I'll go to microaggressions. And I'm speaking from my personal experience. As I started to understand the needs of my organization, and then looked at the person's role, so it depends on the person that you're needing the buy-in from. Is it a direct report? You have a lot of control when it comes to direct reports. It's about coaching and motivating, inspiring, understanding their needs, bringing them along. A lot of it has to do relationship and communication. If it's a peer, and peer relationships, particularly in the business sector, are so important. And oftentimes we show up competitive with our peers for a variety of reasons, but it's really a great opportunity to cooperate across the peer groups, because if there ever came a time when you get promoted and you become your peer's boss, having good relationships is really important, and vice versa. So understanding and approaching your peers with a situation of how can I help you? And oftentimes I try to give first and then ask in the relationship, because at the peer level, there's always going to be that give and take. And then now, if it's a boss relationship, those tend to be a little more challenging, particularly if you have a boss who is not skilled in managing people. I am a believer that everybody doesn't need to manage people, but unfortunately, in the business setting, we haven't come up with pathways for people who are good at a skill or function, but not necessarily good at managing people, to ascend and be rewarded, particularly from a compensation perspective. Oftentimes, the more people you manage, the more money you make. But again, everybody doesn't need to manage, nor does everybody want to manage people. So identifying what is the relationship, and then seeing what their needs are, if you can meet that need, and then come back with the subsequent ask for buy-in and support, is one way to move relationships forward. The second part of the question, microaggressions, that's really hard. And it's painful and it hurts. And I think in the business environment, there's still a lot of work to be done by leaders to protect the emotional well-being of team members. We have a lot of really poor narratives around what leadership means. We're evolving, but we're not there yet. If two things. One, if you have a resource in your company, like an ombudsman or a mediator, I recommend using that, because sometimes you can't just go direct. Document is very intentional. She who documents wins. Very important to document and use the channels that are available to you at your company, whether it's formal HR channels through your management, to express what is happening so that the company then becomes responsible for getting engaged. In these instances, I do not recommend going it alone. I've been through, in the many places that I've worked in very toxic environments, and part of why I learned she who documents wins is when you're working for an organization that is not evolved, being able to show over time what an issue is helps to solve those problems. So, it's unfortunately fortunate that we still have to deal with these things, but we do, and we have to do our part to protect ourselves.
Okay. Do you use social media, and are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I do use social media. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook. I do have a Twitter profile. So let me say this. I need to get better at that, particularly in my new role as the president and CEO of the Regional Arts Commission. And that is my commitment. But please, yes, do reach out to me on social media. I use Facebook and LinkedIn the most. But if you also go to the Regional Arts Commission website, racstl.org, I will be more present across all social platforms as required by my new organization. So my personal life demands, wife, mom, daughter, sister, don't always open up an environment for me to be consistent in my good social media behavior, but I am going to get better.
Okay, getting down to the last few questions. Can you recommend a grant writing program for starting a business?
A grant writing program for starting a business. I am familiar with SCORE. I'm not sure that they're grant writers per se, but if you are interested in starting a business, I really recommend, this is where your network and your relationships make a difference. Identify someone in your network who is doing the business that you're interested in and connect with them, particularly they're in your local community, and find out how they got started. Oftentimes, I don't feel like we engage our networks in our community. We try to figure it out ourselves. Not necessary. There are people doing what you want to do and reaching out to them. People love to share and be helpful. And so starting with someone who knows the resources in your community is just a shortcut to success.
Are there any board recruiting organizations that you would recommend to assist looking for nonprofit board positions?
Yes, I recommend BoardSource, which is a great organization that trains board members. Please get some training and read about serving on boards if you're not already on a board, Robert's Rules of Order, how to approach looking for the right board to serve on, whether it's a new organization that meets monthly or an established organization that meets quarterly, really understanding what your needs are for your personal development and finding the best organization to meet that needs, particularly in a space that you're passionate about, is really important. And also for those of you that have United Ways in your community, they often have board training and are connected to nonprofit organizations. And again, not just because we are in connect with NCNW, national organization with a strong local presence. Oftentimes, women who are members of this organization are also volunteered and networked and connected with other organizations, be it health and human services, arts and culture, sorority. So start where you are and stay committed.
Last question. Is there a specific reason why you chose to attend UT Austin? And was there a program degree that you were interested in?
Yes, so I chose the University of Texas in Austin because I wanted a degree in film. And as someone who is from Texas, I went to high school in Dallas. I did not want to go to school on either the coast in California or New York because I wanted to be close to my family because of my father's illness. So University of Texas had a great, and still has a great, film school. I am an active alum, and it was really one of the best decisions I made. I will also say this. I did go to Dillard University in New Orleans my freshman year because I wanted an HBCU experience. I believe deeply in HBCUs. And so I did start at Dillard. I transferred to the University of Texas, and I wouldn't change a thing about my undergrad experience.
You have the floor, Ms. Mathis.
Uh-oh. Am I the only?
Mic check.
I am so sorry. I was muted. This is Janice Mathis again. I'm Executive Director of the National Council of Negro Women, and it is a delight to have you as our audience tonight. What great questions you asked. We're here every second and fourth Thursday night from 7 p.m. until about 8 or 8:30. And thank you, Ms. Vanessa Foster Cooksey, for teaching us the power of three: me, we, and us. There's something there for everyone. Leaders must learn to manage pain. They must use self-care. They must think about how much time they devote to their relationships. So many nuggets packed in such a compact presentation. We thank you. I'm going to remember, be humble, hungry, and smart. And that doesn't mean being a know-it-all. It means being self-aware. Audience members, if you want to hear about topics that we've not yet explored or we haven't explored in a while, you can email me at janicelmathis@ncnw.org with your suggestions. And I want to thank Ms. Foster Cooksey for doing a little plug for NCNW. We learn about you, and we're grateful for your participation. The poll tonight showed that 50% of you are entrepreneurs, either full or part-time. That's good to know. And 76% of you, more than 3/4, would like to be engaged in nonprofit work. Volunteerism, I'm a living example, can lead to nonprofit work. I started this career volunteering as a lawyer for a nonprofit organization that I belonged to, and it ended up being a consultancy and eventually a position. So that is one path to getting to where you may want to be. We just hired a woman at NCNW whose first job out of college was helping Dr. Height organize the Black Family Reunion. This is a good time to be associated with NCNW. There's a campaign that we're doing for membership called Reach for NCNW. We are national in 32 states with 310 sections and 32 national affiliates. NCNW is international. Earlier today, we were involved with the United Nations, where we are an official recognized NGO, non-governmental organization. We are intergenerational, and we're focused on the cutting edge issues of the day. So again, thank you. If you want to be surrounded by Black women leaders, please consider NCNW, because we see Black women leading today in ways we have not always seen. I think about Marsha Fudge leading the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and of course our Vice President Kamala Harris. Last night we observed Dr. Dorothy Irene Height's birthday in a marvelous ceremony, including her amazing hats. And a little while earlier, we celebrated Dr. Bethune's legacy, and she talked about leaving you respect for the uses of power. And I will leave you with that tonight. We live in a world which respects power above all things. She wrote this in the 1950s. Power intelligently directed can lead to more freedom. Unwisely directed, it can be a dreadful, destructive force. She says, during my lifetime, I've seen the power of the Negro grow enormously. And it has always been my first concern that this power should be placed on the side of human justice. I wish you all a good night. Thanks again to Ms. Vanessa Foster Cooksey for her Power of Three leadership. It was just great. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Good night.